Welcome back to another edition of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Caroni. Here on the podcast, we love to touch on all things Saskatchewan and all things real estate. A really neat episode today talking about a unique real estate investment strategy using your mortgage. I'll introduce our guest just in a second. If you're looking for more content about Saskatchewan real estate just like this, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to never miss our weekly episodes that come out every single Monday. If you have a question about this episode or others in the past, or have a potential purchase, renewal, or refinance, I am a licensed mortgage broker in Saskatchewan and would be happy to point you in the right direction. If you're looking for any of those inquiries and you want to get a hold of me, simply email me, ron@ronqmortgage.ca. Now, today we have a very special guest. As I mentioned, we are discussing the tax-deductible mortgage strategy with Travis Hebert from Precedence in Saskatoon. He wears many hats at Precedence on two different sides of the business. The first is serving as a financial advisor with Precedence Private Wealth, focusing on tax advisory, insurance, and financial planning. The second is serving as an investment advisor with Precedence Capital and Harborfront Wealth Management, which focuses on the investment component of the business. Really cool episode. Hope you enjoy.
This is the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, the show that highlights Saskatchewan real estate. Looking to buy your first house, your next investment property? Subscribe to never miss an episode. Here's your host, Ron Caroni.
Tax-deductible mortgage strategy. That's a lot of big words. Give us a look at what is that system? What is that? How does it work, Travis? Take us through.
Yeah, so it's lots of big words, but it's not scary at all. Actually, it's an incredible enhancement and a really powerful strategy for Canadian homeowners. And so people in the United States who own homes, when they're paying their mortgages down, the interest that they pay, they get to write that off on their taxes. In Canada, we don't have the same benefit. And so we have to get a little bit creative with the way that we structure this mortgage strategy in order for us to get that same type of benefit and build investment portfolios, generate tax refunds, all of the above.
Okay, so what does that look like if someone is currently watching this and they have a mortgage? Can you just give us kind of like a brief overview of how that strategy is implemented for a homeowner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to preface that, I'd say that one of the main goals for most people in Canada is to pay off their mortgage. But a lot of people are forced to make that decision between paying off their mortgage and putting money away for the long term. And this mortgage strategy is able to help people pay that off and save for the long term and build tax refunds all at the exact same time. And so the way that it works is just by putting in place a special type of mortgage called a readvanceable mortgage, which you'd be very familiar with. And this mortgage has a line of credit attached to it, so that every single time you make a payment on your mortgage, that line of credit starts to open up. And what we do is essentially take from that line of credit and we borrow it and we invest the money. We basically are unlocking the equity in your house so that you can invest that money into an income producing type of investment. And really, in the Canadian tax code, that's the most important part of this strategy, is that the money that you borrow and invest is used to invest in income producing assets. And if that's the case, then the government, CRA, is going to allow you to claim that interest on that investment loan and start generating sizable tax refunds. At the same time, you've got money that's invested and you're able to start cycling some of the income from the investment, some of your tax refunds, some of your normal mortgage payments through your property, and pay off that mortgage quicker and build up those tax refunds over time.
So instead of using my HELOC to go on vacation and buy a jet ski, I'm using it to invest, and essentially I get a tax write-off in doing so.
Exactly. Yeah, and in the early years of the strategy, it starts off as a small tax refund, but year after year after year after year, it starts to grow into a really significant amount.
So I do know from the mortgage standpoint that you're going to need a certain amount of equity in your home before you can start implementing something like a home equity line of credit with a readvanceable portion. Is this really set up for two different types of borrowers, those who at least have that 20% equity with the start of a readvanceable, and also those who have a lot of built-in equity, and then they can just go ahead and get HELOC on their property and start using that investment strategy, Travis?
Exactly. It would work well for both types of borrowers. I think basically any type of Canadian homeowner should consider this strategy, whether you've got your home almost completely paid off or if you're just starting out and you've got that 20% mark hit already. So it's going to expedite the amount of time that you have left on your mortgage. We've been doing this strategy for about 13 years and we have clients who don't have mortgages anymore. So you can
Awesome.
tell that it's very, very powerful and it can help you cut that mortgage payoff time almost in half.
So when we're talking about the strategy, I know sometimes with in investments you're looking at what is your long-term outlook, and you'll curtail an investment strategy around a certain borrower. Who would you say this is a good strategy for, or do you say this is a pretty good catch-all for, if you own a home, this is something you could potentially consider?
I think probably every single Canadian who owns a home should at least consider this strategy. I would say that just with all the benefits tied into this, it's something that people should be looking at. If you're not committed to a property for more than 5 years, maybe that's somebody who wouldn't want to look at this strategy. But that being said, this is a portable strategy, so we can move it from property to property. Really, the only people that should maybe stay away are if you're really, really bad at budgeting, have really, really bad spending habits that you don't intend on fixing. But if you're, a patient, logical, thoughtful, rational, these types of things can really help you expedite this process, and it's a really, really good fit for most people in most
Awesome.
markets.
All the listeners of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast fit that to a T, Travis. They're all
I would
very
assume so.
logical. They're all very logical people. Awesome. Anything else that we should touch on the strategy? Or are there any other important highlights or points that we should go over on the tax deductible mortgage strategy?
I would just really want to reiterate that most institutions don't set their clients up for success with this strategy. There's not really a meaningful way for most Canadians to actually expedite that mortgage pay down, even though that is the number one goal. And
Mm-hmm.
people are spending 25 years in their mortgages and they're completely neglecting the whole investment portion of their lives. And this is just a way that can bring all of those things together and really fully integrate a financial plan into the picture.
Awesome. Before we get to your contact info, Travis, I'd love to ask everyone who comes on the show this question. And basically, it's what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself? And you can choose to go like really, really young or, a couple years ago. But what advice would you pass on to younger Travis?
I'm gonna I'm gonna go 10 years ago when I was coming out of high school and moving into the city and starting getting into the real world. Um, Big piece of advice tying into the strategy would be don't be afraid of debt. Don't be afraid to just go out and do things and try and learn and get all the advice that you can and all the knowledge that you can from all aspects. Because something like this, when I was in my younger years, would have been completely off the table. And I think I spent a lot of time personally staying away from the whole investment industry, staying away from the debt side and not really thinking about my personal finances. And of course, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. Next best time is today. But that would be something that I would definitely go back in time and tell myself to get on the right path right away.
Awesome. And now if someone's looking for a little bit more information on this strategy, or if they're thinking that maybe they'd like to ask you a few more questions about it, how could they get in contact with you, or what's the best way to keep up with Precedence?
For sure. Yeah, I wanted to keep this high level today because we could spend hours and hours diving into numbers on it and looking at all the different iterations of the strategy. First stop, I would say, is Precedence Private Wealth and Precedence Capital YouTube channels. We have dozens of videos about this strategy on our YouTube channels. And if you want to get more information, more questions for us, contact us through our website. I'm on all the social media platforms, LinkedIn. Happy to connect with real estate investors across Canada.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis. I really appreciate your time, your insight on this. It is an exciting strategy. And as you say, if someone in America can take advantage of some sort of tax deduction on their mortgage, Canadians should be able to as well. And it's a really cool thing that you're offering. So thank you so much for your time and expertise, and pleasure having you on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I hope you found it informative and learned something that you didn't know before. If you did, make sure to like the video, and to never miss our weekly episodes that come out every single Monday, make sure to subscribe as well. If you're in the market for a mortgage in Saskatchewan, I am fully licensed here. I can go to any town or city in the province. I'd be more than happy to help you out with a purchase, renewal, or refinance. Just check out the show notes of this video or audio podcast for a link to my application. Until next week, I'm Ron Caroni, your Saskatchewan mortgage professional. Bye for now.